Hi, I'm Alex.
And I'm Will.
We're from Fishcatcher, and you're listening to Radio Caram.
Hey, this is Saffire-Rose Fletcher, and you are listening to They Say I Think Too Much on Radio Caram. Hey, I'm Saffire-Rose, and welcome to episode 5 of my podcast, They Say I Think Too Much. Today's episode is called How to Support Someone in Active Recovery. Trigger warning. This is not for anyone in a dangerous dynamic that may include any form of family violence, mental or emotional abuse. Please listen at your own discretion and use your own discernment. If you are in this position, please seek assistance from a resource accommodating your situation. Okay, so this is a topic I have much lived experience with, alongside watching the people who support those most vulnerable, on top of the ones suffering from addiction themselves. There's a good time period that most people neglect to consider when someone is fresh into the early stages of recovery. It's not the probability of relapse. That's already inevitable for some people, but the reason as to why someone may resort to undoing all of their hard work. So what otherwise? Firstly, for the people who don't experience the symptomatic ramifications of the early stages of recovery, it is very hard to ascertain the gravity of how difficult the process truly is. However, being on the receiving end of the one in recovery can be just as challenging to navigate. That's why I thought I'd apply my own story here and turn it into purpose. For those of my listeners who have actually read my books, you would be aware I used to be heavily accustomed to pain relief post 3 major surgeries, 5 milligrams of Valium per day post my complex PTSD diagnosis. I was a binge drinker, and for a short while there, I was dependent on cigarettes. Who'd have thought my mother would be rolling over in her grave? In theory, I shouldn't be alive, and I almost lost my life for a good amount of time there. I have found, upon my own journey, that once I was in the all clear, some people's reaction to my sobriety wasn't as enthusiastic as I had anticipated. I found myself seeking reassurance about said matter quite often. It's not that people weren't displaying pride in my accomplishment. However, in the back of my mind, I felt as if they were impending a possibility for relapse because of how common it can be so early on, which ultimately deters you within an instant, as you can't help but think, why do I bother? Leading you toward the temptation to self-destruct. Just like when people accuse you of doing something wrong and are inclined to believe, well, if I'm doing the time, might as well do the crime. It's a psychological syndrome a lot of us have, and many act on in small ways. Just like dieting, when people don't see the results within the first week of their hard labor, they give up. People need incentives. We yearn to be celebrated. Though sometimes it can feel like it's not that big of a deal. It can even go so far to believe that if one completed a year of sobriety, you can expect to be met with glares of anticipation alluding to, how long will this last? Which doesn't sit well with someone in recovery. As much as people believe they are giving you 100% of their support and belief, sometimes a mere glance or a millisecond of silence can undo all of your mental resilience and faith in yourself, because all you've ever known is failure. And if someone can't hide their facial gestures of concern, it only invites more doubt. This is a journey that requires a lot of mental toughness. When you've been pigeonholed a failure all of your life, you can't possibly reframe that form of thinking so easily, especially in such a compromised state. According to the supporter, the one in recovery may look like they're handling things rather well, when in actual fact, they might be suppressing a panic attack and are also fighting negative internal commentary that's permanently running around in their head as they attempt to engage in mere conversation. Many experience hypersensitivity regarding their surroundings. They feel everything, every energy shift. No conversation is a comfortable one, even if the context is of a calm and positive nature. The hardest symptoms are the invisible ones, the ones that take you by surprise. Some of the symptoms, even well after recovery, can be as acute as the following: sensory overload, stuttering, tics, seizures, tremors, confusion, memory loss, panic attacks, need for solitude, anger, irritability, hypersensitivity to light and sound, bugs crawling under your skin, vomiting, weakened immune system, chronic pain, spasms, migraines, weight fluctuations, debilitating depression, irregular heartbeats, eyesight issues, anxiety, cold sweats, and in most common cases, suicidal thoughts. The list does go on. I can say I've experienced almost every symptom on that list, and some. Imagine micromanaging all of that whilst talking about the weather. Not many can read you or know the severity of what you are going through. So voicing what you need from someone in a moment is the last thing on your list, because you are so overwhelmed that you cannot decipher what your needs actually are. In these moments, people need gentle. They need to feel dignified because they are already conscious of how society perceives them and the labels associated with their identity. A little mindfulness, kindness, and compassion goes a long way. I always suggest look at someone's eyes. Sometimes they are really hurting and screaming inside just to be seen in that moment. Secondly, when you hear so many people without lived experience speaking about the topic of addiction, you'll generally hear things such as, "It's mind over matter," or "addiction is a choice." Those statements can hinder what is already a fragile journey. You see, people love to provide apparent logical conclusions toward a topic such as addiction, but until you've lived it, you are only reciting what was a pending death sentence to the one actually living it. Some people really have no idea what it's like. Heck, I didn't even know. We are not relaxed, quite the contrary. Our brains and bodies are just accustomed to a certain form of substance in order to cope with much more profound and debilitating side effects relating to pain, whether it's physical, psychological, or mental. There's no reprieve in the pending stages of coming down and wondering how you'll manage through the horrifying symptoms before your next dose. In my case, it was a weekly pickup for Valium at the chemist. It was brutal, not to mention the judgmental glares and disrespect I received for my dependency issue. It was inhumane and undignified. There's nothing quite like someone taking one glance at your script and immediately placing you in a box and labeling you a junkie with no understanding of how you came to be in that position in the first place. You are just another problem in the world. You are not a human being. Or so it feels. I'll touch a little further on my case. I'll never forget one doctor saying I was too complex for her expertise and unregistered me from her books without warning or tampering me down from my daily dosage when she was the one who prescribed me 50 tablets per week for a couple of months, with little information on how addictive Valium can be, which ultimately led me being accustomed, and without tampering down, it can be fatal. It's one of the hardest drugs to come off. However, I take accountability for choosing to take them at the rate I was, which was quite high. That's on me. In time, I found my current doctor to this very day, and after a few hiccups, he gradually helped me get to where I am now, and I couldn't be more grateful. I digress. You are constantly fighting the side effects, post-acute withdrawals. The only difference is nobody can see your inner fight throughout the process. Most people in recovery use all of their will just to appear okay around others. It's tiresome. In which leads me to my third example. Trying to appear okay in social settings when people have forgotten about your initial recovery. It can feel like old news to them, but it's still a never-ending process for you, which happens quite consistently. Not because the people you are surrounded by are inconsiderate or they don't care. You just start to fly off people's radar when it comes to the journey you've recently been on and continue to be on because they are so preoccupied with whatever is going on in their lives, which is completely fair. However, It can feel as if you fought the Great War, only to be expected to be fighting another, to do more, to be more proactive. Sometimes people will ask you, what are you going to do next? Neglecting to recognize just how hard the previous obstacle was to jump. Not everyone flourishes by constant movement. Some people need to catch up with their growth. Too much pressure can be detrimental. A period of rest and introspection is needed in order to catch up with the journey you've been on, as it's years of chemical abuse to your mind and body. I find, like musicians, they are constantly expected to have something in the works, to be creating more, producing more, releasing more, one song after the other, despite the hurdles they've already jumped in order to achieve the previous milestone. Now, I understand the perspective for the ones on the receiving end of supporting someone with adverse ramifications in relation to a loved one's recovery period. It can be extremely uncomfortable and unbearable in terms of the severity of their symptomatic condition, as their brain chemistry is readapting to a new normal. In some cases, your loved ones may act out of character and lash out. They will be less inviting to be around. This is not a time to personalize anything or react to triggers, as it can evoke shame and self-hatred via the one in less control of their mind and body. This does not apply to anyone that is in a violent or abusive situation. Sometimes you won't even recognize the person you once thought you knew so well. But most people in recovery are still there, depending on the damage that's done to their brain. It's all dependent on what their previous usage of said vice was, and the duration of time they were consuming it. Again, especially when it comes to reactiveness, it's easy to lose perspective. But there is a way forward for both people experiencing this fragile time together to be proactive and constructive with the intention toward positive progress. It's a matter of not personalizing someone's distance, unwillingness to engage in social activities that were once defined as their overall identity, resistance when communicating, and the inevitable mood swings. Nothing will be balanced or regulated in matters of their behavior. The one in recovery is already overwhelmed and busy trying to find a form of normalcy within the paramount of their symptomatic decline. Their mind and body needs to adjust, which can take a substantial amount of time. I have found in my personal journey of recovery that expressing my needs at the time had been huge. For example, a friend of mine said, if there's anything I need, don't be afraid to ask. But my needs were more complex and furthermore breached both of our comfort zones. My friend, just like myself, likes to talk. I found myself becoming overwhelmed and irritable, which was very new for me. It wasn't towards her, but a need for mindfulness as I navigated feelings of overstimulation and overwhelm. I'm usually quite the chatterbox myself, but this journey was making me more conscious of my surroundings and how I interact with the world. Confronting my friend about mindfulness was very hard for me, as I didn't want to hurt her feelings, but it was something I needed, or else I'd keep suffering in silence, and I was no longer at a stage to compromise what felt bearable for my recovery, even with the risk of giving someone I care about a potential complex. Thankfully, my needs were well received and no harm was done because my best friend put her ego aside in order to see things from my perspective and knew it wasn't personal. It was just a need in order to function more calmly around her. It's about making the person most vulnerable in the situation comfortable. That's not a big ask, yet we struggle to express our needs in fear of how it might be received. Though little do people consider the amount of conflict that can be avoided just by politely asking someone to be mindful when you are symptomatic. It can and does have its benefits. I understand not everyone is equipped for this level of mindfulness. However, an open dialogue in the early stages of seeking support from others is definitely something to consider. Resenting someone for where they are at in their journey is counterproductive. Yes, it's not your problem, nor should you alter yourself in order to fit someone else's comfort zone. But this is bigger than that, so you can be a bigger person in this regard and apply some kindness, especially if you really care for the one most vulnerable. I was very tactful in my delivery, as I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of feedback or to be told you are being a little too much in a moment. Though in hindsight, I'm so grateful that people did. It improved my social skills. I quickly learned that I didn't need to fill the silence with trivial banter, and I developed the ability to read the room. Now, I know this might sound ridiculous. She asked her friend to politely shut up. What a pitiful request. Well, no. For the one experiencing inner turmoil, it can prevent negative outbursts of built-up emotion that's provoked by not raising attention to it sooner. Look, people always say that they are there for you, and whatever you need, they'll deliver. But treating addiction as the disease it is, just like any other illness from a physical and mental health point of view, is a crucial component upon the journey of a successful recovery. Sometimes we don't want to be touched. We don't want to be told. We just need a space held for us of compassion and understanding. And if we slip up and fall backwards, not all of us want to be saved. We just want someone to remain present in our lives as we return toward progressing on our healing journey. Again, just like my experience with certain dispensaries, judgment minimizes our ability to review our efforts in a positive manner. We automatically anticipate being labeled something of a derogatory nature and furthermore deemed problematic and disposable due to a convoluted past regarding substance abuse. When in retrospect, we merely sought reprieve with an unorthodox method of approach in order to survive, because we didn't believe we could thrive. Not everyone copes the same, and that's okay. It's important to remember that some people didn't choose this life. It just happened because they believed they had control over the situation until, like myself, realized I didn't. It's relative to many contextualized subject matters in society. We need to hold space for various perspectives if we want to actually encourage a more wholesome and happier world. I do believe we can achieve this collectively if we start to treat people as if they are human, doing the best they could with what they were given. God forbid you walked a mile in their shoes. You'd want someone to be kind to you. To conclude this episode, I need to say to anyone who is currently in active addiction, in recovery, or recovered, you are not what society labels you to be. You are not a loser. You are a soul having a terrible human experience as you attempt to find peace in a world that's out of control. It doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human. If you are alone in your room at present, feeling like you're always going to be attached to a label despite your best efforts, or automatically considered a write-off due to your past vices, know that you are not, and you are never truly alone. It takes a lot of strength and courage to embark upon this journey. So pat yourself on the back for even entertaining the idea of becoming sober. It's a journey many don't get out of alive. Me personally, I've overcome a lot, and so can you. Anyone who has come off Valium knows the fatal ramifications of what that drug can manifest over time. It's diabolical. An experience I wouldn't wish on anyone, even the most worthy opponent. You are not the character others choose to paint you as. You are not your past. People can and do change. I'm living proof. So hold your head high. It's not an easy journey, and seeking the right support can be difficult at best, but persevere. Don't stop trying. Continue to believe you deserve to be healthy and happy, because you do. I understand some people have given up on themselves and they can't find the incentive to go on. I get it. I was once you. But rock bottom can be a powerful catalyst toward a newfound will in order to create a better life for yourself. And trust me, I did it on my own. I didn't have family, and I refrained from reaching out to most of my friends, as I was aware other people had their own issues and I didn't want to be a burden. So I went away for a while to get healthy. It wasn't an easy process, but I still did it. Not suggesting that they would constitute me as a burden, but I just wanted to be considerate. Nobody is immune to addiction. Trust me. If it can happen to me, it can happen to you. But we can choose to be gentle when faced with someone experiencing such adversity. Until my next podcast, be kind to yourself. Hey, this is Saffire-Rose Fletcher, and you are listening to They Say I Think Too Much on Radio Karam.
Hey, it's Jada from Teen Choosers and the Gene Choosers, and you're listening to Radio Karam.
Don't worry about a thing, 'cause Atticus Health will make you feel alright. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause Atticus Health will make you feel alright. If you got a tummy ache, or you don't feel right, or if you have a nasty rash, keeping you up at night, don't worry about a thing.
Don't worry.
'Cause Atticus Health will make you feel alright.